Good morning, welcome back. And we are joined, I think it might be the first in-house guest that we're having on the Now Morning Show, Giron. We are joined by Ambassador Ute Konig. Please tell me that I pronounced it correctly for once.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much for having me. And I'm, of course, terribly honored to be your first online guest. And I can assure all your audience that I'm fully vaccinated and we're keeping the distance, and I sanitized upon entry.
Thank you very much. We are the same, so we are good to go. Ambassador, we wanted to talk with you this morning because a lot of excitement is happening in Germany right now, in your neck of the woods. A changing of the guard, so to speak. Last month you would have had your national elections. Tell us, what is next for Europe's largest economy?
We are currently in a phase of transition. We'll have a new government. We had elections to our parliament. And in Germany, it's the parliament that will elect our chancellor. I noticed that in TTT, Angela Merkel is also highly popular. So many people kept asking me what will happen now. And that's why I suggested I come and explain it to you and your audience. She is still our chancellor. Our new parliament will come together at the end of this month, and we'll have a change of guard, but we are currently in a phase of transition where parties are negotiating about coalition governments.
So tell us a little more about those coalition governments. We're hearing terms like the Jamaica coalition, which sounds a little close to home for us, but I'm not quite sure if we're in the right place. The traffic light coalition. Maybe you can explain how these coalitions are coming together.
Yes. In Germany, all our governments were always coalition governments because no party has an absolute majority. And in Germany, we have like a color code like you have in your country as well, where certain colors are associated with certain parties. So black in Germany is associated with the Conservative Party, the side of Mrs. Merkel. So a coalition that would come together with her party, black, the Liberals, who are yellow, and the Greens, who are, of course, as their name, they are green, they are our environmentalist party. That would be called a Jamaica coalition. And Mrs. Merkel's party had high hopes that they might reach this coalition, but the winner are the center-left, the Social Democrats. Their color is red, so we are talking about the traffic light coalition, because in Germany we have three colors in a traffic light. We also have yellow, which you don't have in TT. And I was thinking that if you would have in the future a coalition between PNM and UNC, that would be red and yellow, that would in Germany be called the Spanish coalition, because that would be their party colors.
Well, we once were under the Spanish reign, so maybe that's as close as we might get in terms of a coalition here. We are seeing the coming to the fore of Mr. Schulz, and I think he has been identified as a chancellor. Do you have a sense of what his popularity is like, even in a situation where there was no clear winner?
Well, his party is the biggest party, so in German tradition he will be the chancellor if he forms the coalition. Olaf Scholz is currently our vice-chancellor, and he's our Minister of Finance. So he's an old hand in politics. And as Minister of Finance, he was very instrumental in forging out economic packages during the pandemic. This has also increased his popularity. And he's a very quiet person, and he has sort of branded himself as being very similar to Mrs. Merkel in style. So that's why many people think he managed to attract many voters also from the Conservatives. But of course he's a social democrat, so there are things in his program about raising the minimum wage, about spending policies that will still need to be discussed in the coalition talks.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe COVID-19 and the impact that the pandemic has had in Germany may have affected voting numbers, or the fact that people, that the majority, I know you've said that you've had a history of coalitions, but in terms of having a stronger winner be declared?
I think the pandemic has led to a huge rise of vote by letters. That can be seen. And traditionally, most Germans go to the vote in the national election. So the amount of votes was normal. But of course, the pandemic has also given rise to a lot of discussions about personal freedoms. And I think this has also an effect. And we have seen quite a few of new parties who did not make it into parliament, but they have had their issues with the lockdown measures. And this has been a subject in the campaigning, yes. But I think for the big parties, there was a huge amount of consensus about all the measures. It was just the Liberal Party who was in the end saying we need more freedoms. So freedom has been an issue.
And what do you foresee, or what do you perceive to be the impact on the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago and the new German government once things are settled?
In foreign policy, there's always a huge amount of continuity, and climate issues have played a huge role in these elections, also because we had a Green Chancellor candidate, and the COP26 is coming up, and with the Caribbean we know that you're terribly vulnerable, yes, that you're highly affected, and part of our development cooperation have always been climate questions together with CARICOM, which is our partner in this. So I do not see that there would be huge changes. There might be slight nuances on the internal politics, and about the money spent, it will be a big internal debate about taxes-wise, but this should not affect our overseas development aid. I think there's a huge continuity, and all parties agree that Germany has to bear a responsibility worldwide and that we should assume this responsibility.
Finally, Ambassador, I'm wondering, Angela Merkel had such a big impact on not just German politics or European politics, but geopolitics. I mean, for a lot of times, she seemed to be one of the few women in the room among political leaders. Yeah. What do you think will be her legacy as she walks away from political life or steps away from the Chancellor role? What do you see as her legacy in terms of Germany, and how Germans see her?
Germans see her as a very good crisis manager. She not only managed the COVID crisis, but also the financial crisis, the refugee crisis we had in Germany. And she's also seen as a strong European leader. She was somebody who was not afraid to oppose President Trump. There's a famous picture of her at the G7 summit where she seems to tell him off. But I think she's also been a role model for young girls. She was the first woman to become chancellor. She was also the first person coming from East Germany, so her personal biography will also always have an impact. And she came late into politics. She had a career before entering parliament, so this is also something that's debated in Germany as part of her legacy.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, as you spoke about her strength and her strength of character and personality. And I certainly remember that photograph, that very imposing photograph between her and President Trump and the other leaders around her. She seemed to always command that respect. Do you see Vice Chancellor Schulz as stepping into those shoes as easily as politics unfolds, as the situation unfolds?
Well, he's well known due to his international role. He was also very instrumental in creating the new worldwide minimum tax we'll be having. But of course, every successor of Mr. Merkel, and especially if he's a man, will be one of many men in the G7, G20 meeting, so he will not so easily be recognizable on the photo. And I can tell you, when 2005, when Mrs. Merkel started, it also took some time for her to command this respect. But respect has been a leitmotif of Mr. Scholz's campaign, and he as a social democrat also has strong party connections worldwide. So, but it will be big shoes to fit in.
Yes, certainly, certainly. Well, we will be watching. I know the rest of the world will be watching as Germany settles and the government, the new government is formed. It'll also be interesting to see how Mrs. Merkel, you know, how she steps into, I guess, civilian life and what happens to her. I don't know if she's a gardener or something like that, but it will be very interesting to see. Ambassador, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us this morning and for sharing some of your thoughts. We welcome it. We welcome the opportunity to meet with you and talk with you. And yes, continue to stay safe in Trinidad and Tobago.
We will.
And do what you obviously have been doing. So we'll take another break now, I think, and when we come back, more conversation, more guests. Stay with us. This is the Now Morning Show.